Hi guys, it's Loz, Subconscious Loz, and on this channel I delve deep into your subconscious thinking, your hidden thoughts that are causing your shitty reality, like your breakup, or your bad money situation, or your friendships that are falling apart, or your family that no longer speak to you. You caused all that. You may not realize that you're manifesting all the time, so you can change it. So on this channel, I answer people's questions as well as do meditation and affirmation videos, and the lives that I do are every Tuesday on YouTube, but also the lives on my TikTok. And sometimes people are asking me questions in the Facebook group and also in the YouTube comments. Now, this particular question is about an SP, a specific person, an ex or a current boyfriend that has issues, either alcoholism or an ex-wife, a baby mama who's a pain in the ass, or money problems or depression, etc, etc, etc. So if you've got a person with issues or you think they've got issues, this might be the video for you. Okay, let's go. So this is the question. Watch Loz for a few months now and understand that our SPs are reflecting our thinking, and they are, guys. That's what they're doing. However, I struggle on some aspects. When do you know, though, to move on from a boyfriend that has a known drinking problem and find another man with higher value qualities, or affirm to change this situation? And then someone else wrote, good question. What if their problem existed before I came into the picture? How was that reflecting my thinking? Guys, you've got to think, oh, sorry guys, there's a dog snoring under the chair. So guys, you've got to think, what was I like? What was my concept of myself when I met this particular SP? So if the problem existed before you came into the picture, why did you choose someone and then stay with someone you found out had a massive issue? That's about you. Why would you stay if a person was an alcoholic? Why would you stay if the person was deeply depressed? Why would you stay if the person was in massive amounts of debt or had a baby mama who was a psycho? Why would you stay? Now you guys could say to me, oh, because I love him, because this and that. No, fuck no, no. Okay? You've got to question why you chose them in the first place and what your self-concept was like when you chose them. When you choose a person who has issues, you are literally finding a person in a room who won't choose you, okay? This is one of the biggest aspects of self-concept that I see, the I am not chosen assumption. People carry this around their whole life from childhood, and it could simply be being made to feel not good enough in some way when you're a child, and as you grow up, you believe that you're not enough, okay? And it could be your body's not enough, you're not smart enough, you were teased at school, you were bullied, your parents were strict or critical and made you feel bad about yourself. You had a shame event attached to you, like abuse, or something happened to you where you feel ashamed, okay? And therefore you feel not good enough, therefore you anticipate rejection, therefore you will actually look for someone unconsciously who will reject you or not choose you. And if they've got a massive issue like alcoholism, guess what they're choosing over you? Alcohol. If they've got a baby mama issue, they're choosing their children or the drama with her over you. Now, if you assess yourself and you've got yourself in a situation with a person who's an alcoholic or has depression or has an issue, ask yourself, have I ever been with a person like this before? Have I ever felt unchosen by someone before? I bet you the answer is yes. And if it's not yes, and it's never happened before, what was your self-concept like before? Now, this person said, I'd recently come out of a divorce, so I can understand why that happened. Because I said, what was your self-concept like when you met this guy? Now, if she just come out of a divorce and she felt low and her self-concept was suffering, that's when you might attract in someone like that, because your self-concept wasn't on point at the time of meeting them. Now, her question actually was, what do I do? Do I affirm against all the things I believe about this person, that they're an addict, that they've got problems, they've got issues, and change them? Or do I find a new person who deserves me? My self-concept's improving. Maybe I should find someone new. There's a yes and a no answer to this, guys. You can try and change the person, and really you're not changing them, you're changing your opinion of them, your thoughts about them, and therefore they then reflect that thought and then they change in your reality. You're not really changing them, okay? So when people say, I want them to conform, they're not conforming yet, they're not conforming. All they're doing is reflecting your thinking. So if you start thinking they're not an alcoholic, if you start thinking they love you, if you start thinking they choose you, if you start thinking you're their priority, then you'll start to become their priority. They'll start to not choose alcohol over you. They'll spend more time with you. They'll get rid of their issue in your reality. They might be doing something completely different in someone else's reality, but in yours, you'll be chosen by them. You'll be enough in your reality, and they'll think you're enough, and they'll choose you over whatever else they were choosing, like their issues. But the time when you can't change someone and affirmations and creating a new story won't work is if your long-held story about them is so prevalent in your mind you can't possibly change it. You've got all this history and all these stories about what they did to you and the stories you heard about them and the past events and the hurt and the this and that, and you can't forgive them, you can't get past it, and you can't see a new version of them in your mind. That's when you do move on. If you decide that you can't change the story about them, you can't see them as anything different but a person who is riddled with issues, then that might be the time to move on to someone new. However, the problem with this is, if you haven't changed you and your self-concept of feeling unchosen, that you're not good enough, that you're a chronic overgiver, that no one will ever love you because of X, Y, Z, because you will get abandoned or you can't trust them, etc. Whatever the self-concept issue that you have is, if you haven't changed that, you'll find a new person. They'll come in great. They'll treat you like a queen, just like you're affirming. And then your old shit will kick in that you haven't changed, and that person will start treating you like the old person. Then you'll start having a new story about this person that's shit, and you'll have to change them. So guys, it's never about changing them. I don't know if it's because you guys have heard so many videos and so many coaches saying you can change them. You're not changing them, you're changing you. I'll say it again. You're not changing them, you're changing you. And therefore, if they haven't changed, you haven't changed you enough. You haven't changed your thoughts about yourself enough. You haven't changed your thoughts about them enough. So it's all an exercise in changing you. Your thoughts about them, your thoughts about the situation, your thoughts about relationships in general, or men in general, or alcoholics, or people with issues in general, and your thoughts about yourself most of all. So, in answer to this question, if this person can't see this guy differently, see for the blind man, see him as a whole, fresh, new guy by doing things like imagining him ringing her up and saying, "Oh, babe, I can't believe it. I haven't drunk for a week. I tipped all my beer down the sink. It's amazing." Or imagining a phone call with a friend. He hasn't been drinking for over 6 months now. He's completely clean. Da 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 da. Or saying things like, he's thriving now with health. He can cope with life. He can cope so easily now. He doesn't need anything to cope with life. He's thrown the beer away. He's so healthy. He's thriving. He's mentally coping. He is a new man. If you could say things like that and see him differently, he will slowly change because you're changing your mind about him. So by affirming or imagining a new him, living the end of the new him, imagining him healthy and whole and without issues, it'll work. However, if the old story is constantly creeping in and every time you see them, they're drinking, and every time you see them drinking, you react, it won't work because you're reacting in the 3D to the old story, and the old them will continue to turn up until you stop reacting, start changing your thinking. So if you've decided to stay with an alcoholic or a person who's deeply depressed or in debt or da-da-da-da-da-da, what you're going to have to do is not react to the old them. And that sometimes is extremely difficult if you've got this very long-held story about an issue, and especially if you've got ridiculous assumptions like, "But they were like that before I turned up, so how could I possibly change them?" Guys, you chose them that way. You stayed, didn't you? It's about you. If it wasn't about you, why the fuck would you choose a person like that and stay? Got it, guys? If you're choosing to stay in any kind of situation that seems unfavorable, that's fraught with issues, I ask you, why the fuck are you staying? You've got to ask yourself that. That's about you. It's not about them. This entire thing about manifestation or changing a person or getting your SP to conform isn't in any way about them. The amount of people who used to come to me for coaching, and sorry guys, I don't do one-to-one coaching anymore. I may do group coaching soon. The amount of people who used to come to me from other manifestation coaches, and they were given a plethora of specific person affirmations to do. The specific person came back. The specific person left. And they would come to me and say, "Why?" And I would say, "Because you hadn't changed you." Guys, self-concept is this simple. Everyone reflects your concept of you. If you haven't changed your concept of yourself, they won't change. If they come back because you did all these SP affirmations and in your mind you think they've changed, but you haven't changed you, you'll get triggered by the old shit. They'll react, you'll react, poof, argument, they're gone. Or you'll push them away. All right? The amount of people who are in my Facebook group, who did coaching with me, who are on the lives and got their specific person back and then lost them because they reacted, because they got triggered, because they hadn't changed their self-concept enough is astounding. This is an exercise in changing you, and then you see them differently, and then when they come back, you don't react to the old them if they're still the old them, because you're the new you. You're not the old you anymore. But if you do react, you've got to revise. If you do react, you've got to imagine it doesn't matter. If you do react, you've got to fucking not react again. And persist in the new thinking of the new version of them, who's not drinking, who's not got issues, da-da-da-da-da, who's loving you now, who's faithful to you now, is la-la-la-la-la. And the new you, who's chosen, wanted, trusting, etc., loved, etc. That's the game here, guys. Change you to change them. If you haven't changed you enough, they won't change. So, in answer to your question, darling, if you haven't changed you enough, this guy won't change. You can change this guy if you change you. However, if you decide not to stay with him because you can't change your mind about him and you go with another person, if you haven't changed you enough, your old triggers will kick in and this guy will start treating you like this guy did. And then you'll be back to square one because you haven't changed you. Are you guys getting this? I know this is very different than a lot of things you've probably heard. A lot of people say, oh, you can change your SP like it's waving a wand and changing your person. Sorry, I don't believe in that shit. I believe what Neville Goddard taught, which is people simply reflect your thinking. They are only reflecting you. If you don't change you, nothing will change. This isn't about changing others. It's about changing you. And this is all aspects of manifestation, guys, whether it's money situation, friendships, family, relationships. It's a reflection of you. So if your money situation's bad, what are your deep money thoughts? Do you have broke-ass thinking? If you have bad relationships with your family, do you have an assumption about your family that they're toxic or they argue with you or they don't love you enough or you're not the favorite, etc.? You've got to question, what are your deep assumptions about the person you're talking about, the situation you're talking about, and most of all, about yourself. And when you figure that out, you can change you, and then that person will change. So, the process here to change a person with issues would be this. What in this relationship with this person is about your self-concept? So he's not choosing me and he's not making me a priority and he's choosing alcohol after me. I must feel not the priority, not chosen, and not enough to get a proper fucking relationship. Shit, this is about me. I better start affirming. I have always been chosen. I am the number one priority. I am loved. I'm in a beautiful, happy relationship. I am wanted. I am more than enough. I'm perfection. I'm this, I'm that, I'm da-da-da. So for this particular issue, I would start saying things like those affirmations. I would have visualizations of your man no longer drinking, prioritizing you, choosing you, saying loving, sweet things to you, spending all his time with you, being clean and sober and wonderful and the man you want him to be. So that's the way to fix that. You've just got to remember the whole exercise is about changing you. Okay, guys? I hope this makes sense. So if someone does have issues and they come into your reality, you need to question, why are you staying? Why are you choosing them? What about them says something about you? It's the same every time, guys, okay? Please do ask your questions and I may answer them in a video in the comments below or in the free Facebook group Subconscious Laws. And every week I do lives on YouTube Tuesdays, and I also go live almost every day on my TikTok channel. Subscribe, put the notification bell on, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, guys. Mwah.